couple people. Interesting, they said they were threatening the hurricane. I was wondering how many people are going to show up. But if you look on Facebook, we posted, because we've talked about it a little bit, that we have Zohar. The students of Miami and Boca, they put Zohar all up and down the coast of Florida. And so yesterday I saw a little picture. The hurricane just suddenly dissipated into nothingness. So that, we believe, is the power of the Zohar, and we definitely will take credit for that. Thank you. Thank you. Right? If it weren't your support and the students who went out making it happen, it wouldn't be happening. But 9 years and holding strong. So let's just keep that consciousness. So along with that, since we are on the topic of consciousness, we'd like to affirm the truth, because the truth is the key to what will be determined in our life. Our destiny is based on our consciousness. So every week, we start our week off by, one, affirming the truth, and then some lesson of consciousness, which today I hope will set up a new revelation for you, as it did for me as I was preparing. So if I can ask you together just to read with me and affirm our affirmation in truth for the week. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And as we do every week, the first people that we're going to greet after we've affirmed a new level of this consciousness is whom? Is whom? I know you've been here longer. Us! Please stand and greet each other. That's it. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I want to share with you is a Kabbalistic secret. Think you're ready?
Yes.
The back, not just the front. Should I whisper? Are you ready for it?
Yes.
It's going to be interesting. So they say, we all know that it was the story of the Garden of Eden, and we've talked about it over the last few weeks here and there. The Garden of Eden is the first step in bringing heaven to earth. So you and me, as Adam and Eve, we had two trees. We had a choice, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. One of the things that isn't explained to us, because we all hear of the apple, but it never says apple in the Bible. In fact, it really doesn't say what it was they did that's considered eating of the tree of knowledge, good and evil. So one of the things that the Kabbalists say, one of the things that it's taught in the Zohar, is that Adam and Eve had selfish or self-centered sexual intercourse. That was the tree of knowledge. Just waiting to see the reaction here, okay. So then what are we saying? Are we saying then, because we know that was the beginning of all chaos, so does that mean that intimacy is the source of all chaos? Well, ask yourself, you ever had a bad relationship? Yes or yes?
Yes.
Okay. So we have to start thinking a little more objectively. Two things can happen. One, obviously, we're all here because our parents had intercourse. They create children. The only thing that will bring life into the world is that type of intimacy. On the other hand, or it can be, let's say, very powerful pleasure. The other hand, we all know there are things like disease, there's slave trade, there's chaos, heartbreak. Look back on some of your relationships, right? The idea of the relationship and or that intimacy has also brought chaos. So that's what's defined as the tree of knowledge, good and evil. And so we want to talk about that concept today, because all of us have had in one way or another good relationships, even if they broke up. Sometimes you break up in a relationship and you just realize, you know what? We had a great time, we grew, we expanded our horizons, we saw and learned new things from each other, and then we just have to part ways. We're just no longer spiritually matched. So it doesn't have to be a heartbreak. But there are other times that does happen, that you end a relationship and there's conflict and trouble and all kinds of things. So on one hand, yes, this idea of relationship and or intimacy can be good or bad. It can be the tree of knowledge, good or evil. Depends on how we make use of it. So yes, in this one way it is possible. But let me ask you this. Did you ever swear off relationships at one point in your life? You have a bad breakup or something happens and you say to yourself, that's it. Either it was so horrible and bad, I'm never going to do that again. Or sometimes it's the opposite. Okay, I have to confess, years ago before Kabbalah, when I was first starting in my spiritual journey, I was in a relationship with this one woman, and I was so head over heels, I thought, that's it. This is the one. This is the one for the rest of my life. Didn't work out, obviously. And I told myself, that's it. If she's not the one, forget it. No more relationships. Lasted about 4 months. And then came the awakening. No. You know, if that was good, then what's waiting for me has to be even better, right? And this is what's going through my mind. So we want to understand, why is it that way? Even people have good relationships, bad relationships. We read, and I just checked to make sure it's still the same. Even though the rates of marriage changed over the last 144 years, basically the divorce rate still hangs out around 50%. It's still there. So people still getting married and people still getting divorced. But with all of that, we're still getting married. We're still entering into relationships. So there has to be a spiritual reason, because we know everything starts spiritually and then it works physically. So we go back to what we call the endless world. And what exists in the endless world? Endlessness. Endless light, endless peace, endless love, endless union with the Creator, and endless unity with every soul that would ever exist. And that's why you and I, we cannot escape relationships. Think about it. Even people who try and run off to the middle of the boonies somewhere and live all by themselves and grow their own food and build their own houses, etc., I guarantee you that if you could talk to that person, they still have a relationship with people. Say, how do they have a relationship? They're out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody can find them. Do you not think that that person in the middle of nowhere might possibly have some resentment and animosity to somebody in his or her life? Yes or yes? Yes, that's a relationship. They're out in the middle of nowhere, and all they have to do is have a thought of Joe Smith, who 25 years ago hurt them, cheated them, something, and now they're back in a relationship. Can't stand that Joe. Remember what they did. Look what happened, etc. Or the opposite. Or they're thinking, again, all by themselves in the middle of nowhere, and they're remembering somebody that they love, somebody who is a great friend, somebody who may not be in the world anymore, but they're thinking of them fondly. Is that not a relationship? That's also a relationship. Because it started in the endless world as one unified soul. We were one with the Creator endlessly, and we are one with each other also endlessly. So we come into this world of illusion, this world they call the world of fragmentation. And we look around and we say, yes, I am a unique being. There are 7.3 billion other people on this planet. They're all separate from me. Okay, we're learning Kabbalah. We're learning here in the center, so I think to be unified with them, I want to send them all light. I want to wish them well. I want to send unconditional love. I'd like to work together, even spiritually, just to have heaven on earth again, as we spoke last week. So we're constantly in a relationship. It's only the illusion we are not. But every which way, good or bad, we're relating to every person on earth. Whether you like them or you don't, whether you're thinking about them or not. Somehow we're all having impact. So the beauty of what we're learning here is to understand this is the way it goes. We are already in unity with every human being on earth. We're already interconnected. So what we do here in Boca is affecting every person in the world. What they're doing out there has some influence on us. We're learning how to decide what influence it is, good or bad. Will it push us forward spiritually, or heaven forbid not? That's the power of Kabbalah, is to give us consciousness, give us the ability to decide and to choose. The thing is to remember, no matter what you think, no matter what it looks like, every one of us are interconnected with every other person, just like a spiritual internet. So you want to know something about a person? There's a way to find out. But more importantly, and the most practical thing is, here, by sending out the light from our soul, we're creating unity on with every human being. Because remember, every human being is filled with what? Light of the Creator. The sense of total and absolute fulfillment. The potential to be completely fulfilled. Every human being. And that's why we crave. We have these cravings for relatingship in one way or another, whether it's with physical intimacy, whether it's just friendship, whether it's business, etc. But we can find good or bad relationship in everything. How many of you ever had a bad relationship with God? I mean, of all the things, people, energy, whatever you want to talk about, how could we have a bad relationship with God? And I think I've shared with you once when I was 12 and my grandmother died, right, just to make it quick. And the rabbi came over to discuss with to console my parents. And I asked the rabbi as a 12-year-old, I look at him and say, my grandma in heaven. He says, well, we don't know, we don't deal with heaven and this, we just try and do good in this world because we don't know why God does what God does. And as I shared with you, at that moment I couldn't stand God. I was resentful to God because what the rabbi was telling me in my ears was God took my grandmother. So how could I love a God that took my grandmother away, my favorite grandmother, that I love so much? So yes, you can have a bad relationship with God also. Probably most of us, that's why we're here in the Kabbalah Center. Because somewhere along the line, we looked at God and we started to ask, how could God do or let what's going on in the world? How can God let people suffer? How can God let children be born with diseases? How can God let the chaos and the pain and suffering go on? So that's a bad relationship. But at the same time, there's a part of our heart and soul that says, no, in the endless world, we understood God is absolute perfection. It's the light of perfection. It's the light of peace and love and joy and happiness and all goodness. And that's what's inside of us. So now we have that conflict. We have some experience like mine in the 12-year-old, and then we have the understanding that the Creator is absolute perfection, and it is the source of my fulfillment. So what I wanted to relate, this idea of Adam and Eve and the tree of knowledge as being physical intimacy, is what it really is, and let's call it that, divine union. We're seeking unity with the divine. That's what every one of us want. We seek relationships. When you talk about physical intimacy, can you be any closer on a physical or spiritual level with another person than when you're having intercourse? Can't be. Can't be. In fact, the souls in one way or another are being connected. That's why, as we understand it from the Zohar, when it was self-centered, when it wasn't about the revelation of the light, that's what caused the disconnect from the Creator and then all the trouble that's come from that. And that's why our relationships can be that way. But the one union with the divine is the only thing that can make all our relationships fulfilling. The only thing that can help us even fix the bad relationships. Because as I shared with the person out in the middle of the boonies, they're in the middle of the boonies. So even if the person they have animosity towards is alive in the world, they have no physical contact with them. So how can they still be angry and upset? Because it doesn't take, in that way, a two-way contact. It's from you out. You out and you're looking and say, I have animosity towards that person or I love that person. I have resentment and jealousy towards them or I have gratitude and appreciation. It's only from us outwards. So then the same thing, the Creator never left us. Divine union, unity with the Creator, with the light force, never stopped. It's only from our point of view we can disconnect. Why? Because we've been given free will. Because without that free will, how do we manifest fulfillment? How do we achieve our goal? How do we make heaven on earth, as we've spoken before? We can't. We can't. Otherwise, it would have been in Adam and Eve. They wouldn't have had any choice. There'd just be heaven on earth, but it'd be the same in the endless world. We're the ones who said, no. If I'm filled with the light of the Creator, then I want to be creative like the Creator. And so it's up to us. Do we have a drive for fulfillment? Absolutely. Because we're still sensing that fulfillment. But free choice means in this world we have two ways to achieve it. We can achieve fulfillment through all the physical material things, or we can achieve fulfillment through union with the divine. And bring that union of the divine into everything we do in the physical world. That's why it has to start where? Love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. And then it says, and love your neighbor as yourself. How can we love our neighbor, truly love our neighbor, if we don't first have a connection to the Creator? Because the Creator is pure love. The light is constantly shining on us and bringing us only good. So then it's up to us to create union. If we've disconnected ourselves from the Creator, then we have to reconnect ourselves. So we have the choice, and this is where we touched on a little bit before, but I just want to make it very clear. We are constantly bombarded in this world by two ways to be fulfilled. Everything in the outside world is pushing us to seek fulfillment through the physical material world. If you buy this car, if you live in this place, if you drink this beer, whatever it may be, you smoke this cigarette, I don't know, dress in these clothes, you're going to have absolute joy and happiness. Right? Okay, can I go on a side here for a second? Even you see advertisement for medication. And I'm not telling you not to, whatever, but it's just amazing. Here's people that are sick in one way, take this medicine, and what do you see on the advertisement? People with smiles and hugging and laughing and everything else. You know, we're being pushed. Okay, something in the physical material world will give us the happiness we're missing. If we are in a compulsive, addictive consciousness, then we have no free choice. We're just going to follow like robots whatever we're being told. This car will bring you happiness. This job will bring you happiness. This promotion will bring you happiness. This physical material thing will bring you happiness. And when we have that lack of consciousness, which we call compulsion and addiction, then we have no free choice. We're just going to go for it like we did as Adam and Eve. We gave our choice to the tree of knowledge, and unfortunately we've been set in that pattern almost ever since. To still pick without consciousness, but to act like robots. What we teach in the center in the first course is something we've called restriction. But restriction isn't limitation. Restriction is our ability to stop and say, wait, I'm not going to give in to my addictive and compulsive feelings, urges. Stop for a moment. You know, sometimes you used to say, when you're angry at somebody, what do they say? Stop and count 10. That's the idea of restriction. The trouble is, I remember when my parents used to tell me, you know, Chaim, just count 10, count 10, count 10. So I do that. I'm angry at the person, I'm counting 10. And while I'm counting 10, what am I going to do to them? How am I going to get them? When, you know, 10, in 5 seconds I can scream at them. So it wasn't what we know in the Kabbalah Center as restriction to give me free will. It was just sort of delaying my reactive behavior, screaming, yelling, or whatever it was. So restriction is where we stop and we say to ourselves, wait a second, do I want to be under the slavery of that negative thought in my head, what we've called the bad habit voice, or the opponent? Do I want to be a slave to that and just act out of compulsion and addiction with no free will? Or do I insert restriction, which gives me the opportunity to use my free will, to go out of my human nature and into my divine nature? That's why the unity with the divine is so powerful. Because we can either be a divine being in a human body and being controlled by the human body, or we can be a divine being in a human body that the body is just doing the work of the divine. That's our choice. But without restriction, we have no free will. Without restriction, we can't stop and think, which way do I want to go? Do I want to scream and yell and have temporary and short-term fulfillment? Or do I want to stop and be more godlike and act with compassion and kindness and forgiveness? And maybe it won't be as satisfying in the beginning, but in 3 days, 4 days, a week from now, when I'm looking back, I say, you know, Chaim, I'm so happy that you restricted, because you know how you get when you don't restrict. And you can look back and you can see the difference. In fact, some of the people in the center have been around for a year, 2, 3, 4, whatever. We have AK and BK. How we were before Kabbalah and how we've become after Kabbalah. And you can see a huge distinction right there. Like, that's the key, because it takes everything we've ever learned, puts it all together and bumps it up a few notches, so that everything we've ever experienced now can be used for our good. So how do we create union with divine? Well, we do it every week, frankly. You've got to use the holy names. What does it mean, a holy name? So every week we use one of the 72 names of God. That's what it's called, 72 names of God. Does it mean there are 72 gods? No, but it means there's, in this frame, 72 attributes: kindness, compassion, abundance, prosperity, forgiveness, mind over matter, drawing heaven on earth, connecting to the angelic forces, etc. So through the use of the holy names, whether it's the 72 names, or I'll throw it out there for you, the Ana B'Korach, or the power of the Zohar, every word of the Zohar is a holy name of God. So as we're using them, we are creating a divine union. Connection to the endless world, connection to our perfection, connection to the purity in us and in everybody else. Because we are, from that point of view, we are God incarnate. But we have to go and express it. And that's the real key. The key is not just connecting to the divine. The key is using that divinity once we've connected to it, once we've awakened a new level of it. That's the power. So yes, it's love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might, which means using these names to connect. I mean, think about it. If you want to call somebody now who lives across, even just across the state here, you want to contact them right now, what do you have to do? You have to use a phone, no? You take out your cell phone and you call them. So you need the instrument of the phone to be able to contact that person who's just across the state. Well, what about if you want to connect to the divine? You also need a telephone. You need some communication. That's the power of the holy names. That's what it means to call on the name of God. It doesn't mean call on God and say, God, come do this for me. God, come take care of my problems. No, it means to use the holy names to strengthen and awaken a greater level of the light of the Creator inside of me so I can go out and act more God-like. That's love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might, and love your neighbor as yourself. The trouble is sometimes we have that nagging voice of negativity in our head, and what do we start to do? The people we don't like, well, they're not my neighbor, right? Joe is next door over here, Mary is next door over here, a couple people here and here, and we start to edit who's our neighbor. But go back to the endless world. In the endless world, who of the 7 some odd billion people on this planet, who were not our neighbors? In the endless world, everybody is our neighbor. In this world, it's only our illusion they're not. What we're learning is it's for our benefit first and foremost to be loving and kind and compassionate to all those people. To love my neighbor as myself makes my life heaven on earth. So I need to use the holy names to connect to the light, but then I need to go express the light. And that's the key. Actions speak louder than words. Don't we say that? Actions speak louder than words. So then we have to take the divine and act divine everywhere. I mean, imagine, if we are God incarnate, if we are a piece of that Creator, that endless light in this physical world, in this physical body, and we can express either the human or the divine, think how much power we have when we wake up that consciousness. When we connect with the divine and it transcends the physicality, then we bring the divine into the physical. Nothing can stop us. Nobody can interfere with us. Nobody can cut us short. Nobody can stop us from gaining our good. We become absolute control over our own lives. Nobody can take that away from us because it's from us outward. Love your neighbor as yourself is outward. Send it out because it's out. You send animosity to the people and therefore you've disconnected and you feel it. You send love, you're also going to feel it. You send forgiveness, you're also going to feel it. So then the more we identify ourselves with the God inside of us, and the more we draw on the holy names to awaken that, then we become God-like. And we have to start calling ourselves by those names. Look in the mirror. I am love. I am kindness. I am forgiveness. I am compassion. Right? Not I'm Chaim, I'm Mary, I'm Joe, I'm Manny, I'm whatever the name is. No, we have to remember at the root, my name is God. My name is all of those. Love, kindness, compassion. It's oneness, it's unity. What did Moses do? Why was Moses? Why did it say in the Bible, Moses knew God face to face? Doesn't say that about anybody else. Face to face. I look at you face to face. It's direct connection. What does it mean when we say sexual intercourse? It's unity. It's communication. The word intercourse itself just means that. Union and communication between people. So when it says Moses knew God face to face, why? Because when he stood at the burning bush that didn't burn, and God says, I want you to go free all of the Israelites from Egypt. And Moses said to him, but tell me, I'm going to go to Egypt. What name do I say to the Pharaoh and to the Egyptians and to the Israelites? What name do I use to tell them I've come in the name of the Creator to free them? And it says in the Kabbalistic terms, in the Aramaic, Eke Asher Eke. They translate it, I am that I am. And in spiritual groups, you hear that a lot. The great I am, the great I am. Sadly, that's even been corrupted. Because then what does it become? I am. the me. No, it's not that. Kabbalistic terms, the name Aleph K Yud K is the energy of the endless world. It's the energy we call Binah, the source of all the good in this physical world. So when Moses was told by the Creator, use this name to go free us from the bondage called Egypt, we have to reach into the source of our being, what's called Binah, the I am that I am, the Creator that is endlessly. And I have to use that to act with kindness and compassion and forgiveness and tolerance and gratitude and appreciation to others. I can't just say, okay, God and I are one like this, and walk around all by myself isolated. Can you imagine? Did God isolate himself? Even in the metaphor, did God isolate himself in heaven has nothing to do with earth? Even in whatever context you look at it, so God is up there looking down on us, God is doing something, even if you want to say God is answering and not answering prayers, but there's still kind of interaction in some way or other. So the Kabbalah is just saying we have to reach into the source, Binah, our warehouse of light, and that's the only thing that can free us from the compulsions and addictions and the illusion of this world. And remember, if the Creator, the light source, is total and absolute fulfillment, and our ultimate goal and mission is to bring heaven on earth, does heaven on earth look like a desert? Right? Just nothing, cactus and dead plants, etc.? No. Heaven on earth is the Garden of Eden. All of us smiling, happy, joyous, prosperous. We live in great houses. We have wonderful things. Everything is comfortable, but it's come because we drew on the divine, we connected to that divine unity, and then we expressed it. When they talk about doing a good deed, every religion, every spirituality talks about doing good deeds, right? Be kind, help your friend, do this. If you see somebody who needs assistance, go help them. Even your enemy, the Bible says, even you see your enemy needs help, go help them. Even somebody who did you wrong, go help them. Because again, it's from us outward. So in Kabbalistic terms, the phrase is a mitzvah. And I know some of you are going to misunderstand it because of your background, but just use the word mitzvah. Usually they say, it means commandment. God is commanding you. You shall do this. Never worked. Never worked. There's no more murder. Remember, Mount Sinai was 3,400 years ago. Thou shalt not murder. No murder in 3,400 years, right? So then obviously it's not a command, because if it were truly God's command from that point of view, and God is all-powerful, then nobody should be able to murder. But we've been given free will. So not only can we do bad, but we also can do good on our free will. So the word mitzvah comes from the word latsevet, to join together. Like when you bind two things together, or you create a group in unity, that's what it means. You're unifying yourself with the light force in you and all around you and in each other every time you do something good for somebody else. So you become more glued. There's a word called devakut. The founder of the center, Rav Ashlag, says it's our ultimate goal, to create gluing. Devakut means to be glued to the Creator. Ultimate divine union. That's our goal. If you're glued to the Creator, then you're glued to the Creator inside every other human being. And therefore the good actions that we do, the good deeds that we do, or they say the mitzvot that we do, are in order to bind us to the light of the Creator for our good. And that's why we shouldn't stop, because it's your enemy. You don't like him? Yeah, but he's got light in his soul that you need for some blessing in your life. Act with kindness. And as I've often said and will continue to say, doesn't mean he has to come over for coffee, you have to go out for dinner, or you have to be in physical contact with that person. But you have to, at least in your consciousness, in your prayers, in your meditations, you have to wish them well. Because sending them light connects you to the light of their soul. In the endless world, they're not your enemy, they're your best friend. We're all bound together. It's here we can have the perception they did me wrong, and therefore I want to separate. So Kabbalah is teaching us how to transcend that illusion. Divine unity goes beyond our physicality. If we want heaven on earth even individually, if we want a life of bliss and peace, then we have to, yes, connect to the power of the divine, but then we have to act. We have to glue ourselves to the light in the soul of every human being on earth. And yes, that also includes yourself. because we have to be able to call ourselves by the names of God. You are love, you are kindness, you are compassion, you are mercy, you are caring, you are sharing. We have to say that about ourselves also, because to the extent that we can't say that about ourselves is the extent we can't say it to other people. Love your neighbor as yourself. Whatever you think about you is the extent you can think about the others. Now, I'm not telling you, because I'm hearing that voice, not telling you to be selfish. You have to acknowledge you and me and everyone else, we're one with the Creator. So whereas we often don't see that about ourselves, but we think we're seeing about other people, we have to realize the stronger our divine union, then the stronger our union with each other. And our mission is, and we are on the verge of, and we're seeing miracles every day here in the center, of things transforming people's consciousness. People shifting from doing the negative things to doing the positive, including you and I. Heaven on earth is very, very close. It's here. According to all the Kabbalistic teachings, we're on the verge of. It's the eve of. What the center is about is speeding up the process. So today, if you want your piece of that endless world to exist here in your life, then your job is use the holy names to awaken that power of the Creator in you, and then go out and create your piece of Garden of Eden, your piece of bliss, your piece of heaven on earth, starting today. We sang together one day. Today is the one day. God bless.